right, strap in, everyone. Today, we're tackling two worlds.
Absolutely overflowing with fantastic creatures.
But you're not just playing a game.
You're shouldering the weight of humanity's survival.
Monster Hunter World. The board game, Primal. The Awakening.
And trust me, you came to the right place.
Because we've got mountains of information to sift through.
Rule books, quest guides.
Designer notes, you name it.
We're going to dig deep, unearth the key differences between these games.
And help you figure out which one clicks with your playstyle.
Which one calls to you?
Let's kick things off with the world building.
The lore, the setting, the whole vibe.
Because both of these games...
They really lean into it.
In Monster Hunter.
It drops you right into the new world.
Which, from what I've seen...
It's anything but a walk in the park.
This is an ecosystem where the food chain is...
Very, very real.
The ancient forest, for example.
On the surface, it's all lush jungles and vibrant colors.
Until you catch a glimpse of something like...
The Toby Kadachi.
That's the electric panther, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine a panther.
But dial up the voltage. Amp it up with static electricity.
And then there's the Anjanath.
That fan favorite.
The T-Rex with a fiery temper.
The one that makes you think twice about enjoying a nice nature walk.
It's incredible how they've brought these monsters from the video game
into the board game. The detail is just stunning.
But it's not just about the individual monsters.
It's about the ecosystem, the interconnectedness.
You have to learn how to navigate this world, understand the food chain.
These aren't random encounters. They have a place.
Which is where the Commission and the Fifth Fleet come in.
You're not just a lone wolf out there.
You're part of something bigger.
Right. There's a real sense of responsibility.
You're part of an expedition trying to tame this new world.
Establish a foothold for humanity, so every hunt has a purpose.
You're gathering resources, studying these creatures.
All for the sake of survival.
And this is just the ancient forest, right?
Just a taste.
There are more biomes, more monsters waiting to be discovered.
We're barely scratching the surface.
Well, let's pivot for a second. Talk about Primal. The Awakening.
Completely a different vibe.
The setting, Thyrea.
If Monster Hunter is about understanding an ecosystem,
Primal throws you headfirst into a world.
On the brink of collapse?
Okay, paint me a picture.
What's happening in Thyrea?
Why is everything going haywire?
Imagine this. A volcano, vulture, dormant for centuries.
Sounds peaceful so far.
And then, boom.
Eruption.
Shakes the very foundation of this land.
Okay, that's bad enough.
But as if that wasn't enough.
Oh, there's more.
From the depths of that eruption.
This is where the monster comes in.
Vyraxen.
Okay, who or what is Vyraxen?
A blood-red dragon.
A dragon.
Descends upon the world.
That definitely raises the stakes.
Things are broken in Thyrea, fundamentally broken.
And the players are caught right in the middle of it.
It's not just about learning to live alongside these creatures anymore.
It's about survival. Uncovering the truth behind this apocalypse.
Two very different flavors of monster-infested worlds.
Monster Hunter. You're exploring, uncovering the secrets of a dangerous ecosystem.
Primal. Something's gone terribly wrong and you're trying to fix it, survive the onslaught.
But in both cases, you're facing down some incredible creatures.
And that's just the beginning of the story. Welcome back to the deep dive. Now let's talk about the gameplay. How do these games actually play?
Yeah, let's get into the combat. How do we take down these monsters?
Let's start with Monster Hunter. It's all about preparation, really understanding your prey.
I'm really intrigued by this breaking monster parts thing. You're not just whittling down a health bar.
It's more like a puzzle, figuring out which parts to target to bring the monster down.
So you're not just attacking randomly?
No, you need to be strategic. Imagine you're facing a Rathalos, that massive flying wyvern.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You're not just going to swing wildly, you're aiming for its wings to ground it, or its tail to limit its attacks.
So you weaken it strategically.
Exactly, and that's where the crafting system comes in.
So it's not just about collecting cool loot.
No, everything you gather can be used to craft new weapons and armor.
Okay, so I'm picturing this. I go on a hunt, say against the Toby Kadachi.
That electric panther, yeah.
I manage to break off its horns. I'm guessing those are pretty valuable.
Absolutely. Those horns could be used to craft some powerful thunder-resistant armor.
So you're constantly getting stronger, more prepared.
That's what makes Monster Hunter so satisfying. You hunt, craft, and then head back out even stronger.
And you're doing this with other players, right?
It's a collaborative effort. You need to communicate, coordinate your attacks.
Okay, so Monster Hunter is about planning, strategic combat, and teamwork.
Right, you're working together to take down these massive beasts.
Now, how does that compare to Primal?
Primal is much more about reacting on the fly, adapting to a constantly shifting battlefield.
Okay, so it's less about meticulous planning.
Much less, you need to think fast, make decisions in the heat of the moment.
Sounds intense. How does the combat work?
Picture a circular arena divided into zones, with the monster in the center.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The monster is constantly moving, rotating, changing its focus, and its attacks have specific areas of effect.
So I need to be aware of its positioning.
Absolutely, you're dodging tail swipes, avoiding breath attacks.
Sounds hectic. How do I actually fight back?
You use action cards to attack, defend, and move around the board, but the key is mastering combos.
Combos, like stringing attacks together.
Exactly. Certain cards work together, allowing you to chain attacks for massive damage.
So I need to think strategically, but also react quickly.
Exactly. And as the monster takes damage, it becomes enraged, shifting into new stances.
So the challenge is constantly evolving.
Always. And you need to adapt, find new ways to exploit its weaknesses.
And I'm guessing stamina management is important.
Absolutely. Every action drains your stamina. Mismanage it, and you'll be left vulnerable.
Okay, so Primal is all about quick thinking, adapting to a changing situation,
Right.
and managing your resources carefully.
You got it. It's a thrilling dance of attack and defense.
So we have two very different combat systems. But how do the games handle character progression?
Both offer rewarding ways to grow your hunter, but they take very different approaches.
Let's start with Monster Hunter.
In Monster Hunter, as we've discussed, crafting is king. You're constantly upgrading your gear, experimenting with different weapons and armor.
So I could specialize, become a heavy hitter, or maybe a nimble, dual-wielding expert.
Exactly, finding what works best for your playstyle. But remember, knowledge is power in Monster Hunter.
You need to study the monsters, understand their weaknesses.
Absolutely, and craft the gear that gives you an edge.
So it's the hunter and their gear. What about Primal? How do you grow your hunter there?
In Primal, instead of crafting, you focus on developing your innate abilities through a skill tree system.
Oh, a skill tree. I love those. It's like watching your character evolve over time.
As you play, you unlock new skills, enhance existing ones, and even acquire powerful mastery cards.
So you're customizing your character, making them your own.
Precisely, tailoring them to your playstyle. And unlike Monster Hunter, where your progression is tied to gear, in Primal, it's all about your skills.
So two very different paths to monster hunting glory.
In Monster Hunter, you're a master craftsman, outfitting yourself for the hunt, while in Primal, you're a master tactician, relying on your evolving skills and strategy.
But wait, there's more to these games than just combat and character progression, right?
There's the campaign structure, alternative game modes, all sorts of interesting things we haven't even touched on yet.
And we'll be exploring all of those in part 3, so stick with us as we continue our deep dive into Monster Hunter and Primal. Welcome back to the final showdown of our Monster Hunter vs. Primal deep dive. We've covered the lore, the monsters, the combat, the character progression.
We've broken these games down to their core.
But there's one crucial piece we haven't tackled yet.
The campaign structure.
It's the journey that takes you from rookie hunter to legendary slayer.
The glue that holds it all together.
So let's start with Monster Hunter. What kind of adventure are we looking at here?
Monster Hunter World. The board game gives you a sprawling campaign.
I like the sound of sprawling.
It leans into that sense of exploration, of discovery.
Okay, walk me through it.
Imagine setting out from Astera, your bustling base camp.
Okay, I'm there.
The world map unfolds before you, a tapestry of different biomes.
So I have choices to make.
Absolutely. You have main story quests that drive the narrative.
The overarching plot.
But there are also side quests, investigations, optional challenges.
You could spend hours just exploring one area.
The ancient forest, for example, uncovering all its secrets.
And it's all about that loop, right?
You hunt, gather materials, craft better gear, and then take on tougher challenges.
It's a living, breathing world.
You're not just following a predetermined path, you're carving your own.
And you're doing this with other players, right?
Teamwork is key in Monster Hunter. You're coordinating attacks, sharing resources, relying on each other's strengths.
It's like that classic monster movie scene, the group planning their final assault.
You can feel the tension, the anticipation.
Okay, so Monster Hunter's campaign is all about exploration, discovery, and shared progression.
It's about forging your own legend alongside your fellow hunters.
Now, what about Primal? How does its campaign structure compare?
Primal. The Awakening takes a more narrative-driven approach.
Okay, so there's a story we're following here.
It's a tale of ancient prophecies, world-altering events, and powerful forces clashing.
This is where my inner role player gets excited.
Each scenario is like a chapter in a dark fantasy novel.
With its own twists and turns.
You have objectives, consequences, branching paths.
So the choices I make actually matter.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
You might have to make tough decisions with lasting repercussions.
It's like those choose-your-own-adventure books, but with giant monsters.
And the story itself is full of intrigue. You're uncovering secrets, piecing together clues.
So it's a mystery, too.
You're trying to figure out what's behind the awakening of these primordial beasts.
But it's not just about the overarching narrative, right?
Each hunter also has their own personal backstory, their own reasons for fighting.
So I'm not just a generic hero.
You're stepping into the shoes of a character with their own personality, their own history.
And their story intertwines with the main plot.
Add in another layer of depth to the experience.
Okay, so we've got two very different campaign structures.
Monster Hunter. Sprawling exploration, shared progression.
Primal. Narrative-driven, choices that matter, a story that unfolds.
But what if I'm looking for something a bit more self-contained?
A quicker gaming experience.
Both games have options for that. In Monster Hunter World, the board game, you have arena quests.
What are those like?
Imagine stepping into a gladiatorial arena.
Okay, I'm there.
You're facing a specific monster in a more controlled environment.
So it's pure combat, no exploration.
It's a great way to test your skills,
Yeah.
experiment with different builds.
And because they're self-contained, I can jump in and out whenever I have time.
Perfect for a quick monster slaying fix. And Primal has something similar.
What do they call them?
Expeditions. They're streamlined scenarios where you face a specific monster in a unique environment.
So they're good for new players, too.
A great way to learn the ropes, get a taste of the combat,
And for experienced players.
a chance to experiment, try new strategies.
Okay, so we've covered the campaigns, the alternative modes of play.
We've really dug deep into the mechanics of these games.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on.
What's that?
The thematic elements, those little touches that really elevate the experience.
The things that make you feel like you've stepped into another world.
Both Monster Hunter and Primal do this really well.
But in very different ways.
Let's start with Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
What are some of those standout thematic elements?
The monster design, for starters, is incredible.
A detail.
It goes beyond that. Each monster has its own unique behaviors, attack patterns, even sound effects.
It's like encountering them in the wild.
Exactly. And the mechanics reinforce that. You're tracking footprints, analyzing droppings, using your knowledge of the environment.
Like a real-life naturalist.
And then there's the crafting system, which is so thematically appropriate.
You're using the resources of the world around you.
Taking the scales, the claws, the fangs of your fallen foes, and turning them into tools for survival.
It's a tangible connection to the world.
A reminder that you're part of this ecosystem.
Okay, so Monster Hunter grounds its theme in the natural world.
It's about understanding and respecting that world, even as you hunt its creatures.
Now, how does Primal approach the thematic elements?
The narrative is key in Primal. It's not just window dressing, it's the driving force.
The heart of the experience.
The world is steeped in lore, with ancient civilizations, forgotten rituals.
It feels like an epic unfolding.
And the artwork and components reinforce that. You have evocative illustrations, detailed miniatures.
It all comes together.
It creates a cohesive, immersive experience.
So Monster Hunter immerses you in the natural world,
While Primal throws you into a world of myth and legend.
both achieving thematic depth in different ways.
But both succeeding in transporting you to another world.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Dissected these games from every angle.
We've compared, contrasted, analyzed.
Hopefully equipped you with the knowledge to choose your own monster hunting adventure.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Let's leave our listener with one final thought.
in a world where monsters roam,
Where ancient powers stir,
and where the fate of humanity hangs in the balance,
which path will you choose?
methodical path of the hunter, carefully crafting their way to victory.
Or the reactive path of the primal warrior, adapting to the chaos, embracing the unknown?
The choice, dear listener, is yours.
Happy hunting!